Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest This is the Music Meets podcast. On episode 70, I'm delighted to be joined by Joe and Brad from Indie Rockers All Right, who are just days away from releasing their belting new single, DRESSCODE. As well as talking about the new single, we're going to have a little chat about the band's recent announcement of playing at Why Not Festival this summer, and also find out what the band's plans are for the rest of 2023. So Joe and Brad, welcome along to the This is the Music Meets podcast. Thanks very much for coming on. How are you both doing today?
That was a lovely intro. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Nice one for having buzzing.
Great one. Well, thanks, as I say, thanks very much for coming on. Really looking forward to having you on today. And before, obviously, we go on to talk about DRESSCODE, I'd sort of like to go back, really right back to your, like the very beginning, I guess, really, your like earliest, like musical memory growing up, either, listening to music or, maybe picking up the guitar or singing or whatever it might have been for the first time.
Yeah, so for me, my big thing with music, so I didn't learn to play guitar until lockdown, to be fair. So I've always been massively into music and things like that, mainly through my dad. So he used to drive me around everywhere I played footy from when I was about 3. My brother played as well. So my dad used to take us both to footy, and he would just have his it was tapes originally.
Yeah.
And then he moved on to a CD player in his car. So it was just him playing his tunes. So he was massively into Pink Floyd, Ocean Colour Scene, Oasis. So it was just all the bangers, the Beatles being played in his car. So I just picked up on that type of music literally from the get-go. And then throughout school, even like primary school, I remember being in like year 1, and there was like a party, and they said, bring in your CDs, and everyone was bringing in the pop CDs, and I brought in the Beatles one album and said, can you put that on? And the teachers must have thought, he's fucking weird, him. But so that was it for me. And then lockdown, obviously, I could play a bit of keyboard and whatever, and then lockdown, I just thought, this is the time I'm going to learn guitar, and I'm still quite average at it, but that allowed me to then start writing tunes because I could play a few chords. So yeah, that's it for me. Brad's got a bit more musical experience, so go for it, Brad.
I don't know about that. Mine's not as cool as that, to be honest with you. My earliest music memory is playing my mum's ABBA Gold record. And dancing around. Dancing around my mum and dad's front room in my underpants. So yeah, that wasn't last week, by the way. I was probably about 5 or 6 years old at that point. It's only when I got a bit older I started getting into sort of music that I'm into today, really. So I was, and still am, obviously good friends with the drummer of the band now. We grew up as sort of family friends, really. And he's a couple of years older than me at school. He was in another band that we obviously used to play in. But he invited me down. He said, come down, have a listen, etc. And they needed a bass player at the time. So he said, learn bass, you can be in my band. And obviously looking at it going, that's pretty cool, I thought, yeah, go on then. So off I went down to Money Traders with, I think I had 50 quid in my pocket that had been saving up all year, because my nan used to put £2 in a jar for me every week. And I've been saving that up. I said, all right, I'll spend it on a bass guitar. And I think it was called a Cheetah, horrible bass, really, really heavy. The strings were a mile off the neck. And that was me then. I signed a joined this band. I tried to drop out loads of times because we're no good at it. And I guess here I am today. And weirdly, we've always stuck together, myself and Liam. And here today, different band, but still the same engine room. So that's where I started to get into more sort of rock music and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. Some great memories there, and certainly stuff as well that I can relate to, especially with the money being put aside by your nan. Yeah, can definitely relate to that. But kind of like then just sort of still sticking with the sort of those early memories. Can you like maybe remember either like say like a first single, or maybe like an album, maybe that you purchased yourself, or maybe that someone else got for you? And have you got any ones that you sort of, it was that first one that maybe you sort of like look back now and go, oh, what was I doing with that?
To be fair, thinking of some like random ones, like I say, I always remember that Beatles one album. It was I think it was my dad got it, and I used to just play that all the time. And I was like obsessed with the Beatles. But then albums in terms of like when they come out, I think it wasn't really until probably late primary school, secondary school, I really started like appreciating music that was coming out. So around the time was like Arctic Monkeys were breaking through. So I remember listening to their debut album and thinking like again, didn't really understand the musical aspect of it, but it was so like different, but so like into what I was into. And I was like, fuck, this is class. So I remember tanning that at the time of it coming out. And then the other one as well is Cortinas. I know the rest of the band aren't really into them, but I followed them from when they started releasing their first albums as well. So they were the big ones that stuck with me when Arctic Monkeys have ever released one, and whenever Cortinas have. Obviously, like your Oasis and things like that, I've listened to all those, but it wasn't until like the later albums that I was really getting onto them as they were releasing them. The other like one that's a bit obscure as well for me is, and I still swear by it's one of the best albums of all time, is The Defamation of Strickland Banks by Plan B. It's completely off from like what I listen to or the music that we make, but just that I just think the story of that album, like front to back, I don't know if you even ever listened to it. It could be made into like a film, so I always rave on about that. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I'll have to check that one out. Actually, I think what was I'm not sure if it was on that album. What was that one he did? Stay Too Long. Which I
Yeah,
think
that's on it. Yeah,
that is from that. Right. I remember listening to that song and just thinking, wow, like obviously because everyone was going, oh, he was a bit of a rapper and stuff prior to that, but obviously that got a decent voice to him. To be fair.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah.
And it's if you listen to it, like say from front to back, it's a story, and like that She Said, the one that went massive, that all links into the story. So I definitely recommend having a listen to it. Like.
There we go. And how about you, Brad? Have you got anything like that at all? Like, is it always been the same, or have you got sort of maybe a one in there that you're not too happy about that you got?
I don't know. I think growing up, I remember finding a box of my mum's records in the loft, and funnily enough, looking at you both here on Zoom, you've got the Rolling Stones logo behind you, but my mum's got all these original vinyls, if you will. So there were Stones in there, Queen, everything of sort of that
Yeah.
era, really. So I think Bowie was in there as well. So. Um, yeah, she had this dead old record player up to the big old fashion speaker type things. So yeah, I just used to. I think it was a novelty of putting the vinyl on and moving the disc and sort of the needle and putting them on there. So,
Yeah.
and that's where probably from around 10, 11 years of age, I started getting into some of that again, really. So, but I mean, growing up, my dad was more into, and still a guilty pleasure of mine, but Green Day. I think I've seen them quite a few times now as well. Whenever they're in the UK, that was one of the first gigs I ever went to. I think the first gig I went to. So yeah, that's probably a bit of an obscure one.
Yeah, nice. Some great stuff there. So let's then fast forward it then to when obviously All Right got together. So that was 2021. Obviously, you first started putting music out there. So you was kind of like effectively in lockdown, middle of lockdown, weren't we at that point? So kind of like then, how did that happen? Like how did the band start? And kind of like as well, what was it like in terms of trying to like record and rehearse during that period?
Yeah, it was completely random how it came about. To be fair, so it was the back end. It was end of summer 2020, and it was when they just sort of lifted some restrictions. So one of my mates had like a party in his garden because you were allowed at that point. So it was like everyone was buzzing, went round, and this was around about the time that I could play about 4 chords on guitar because it's what I'd been doing through lockdown, just doing my girlfriend's head in, just strumming away in our flat. So I'd done my 4 chords and I'd written Life and Ellie as well. And then we were at this party and Matt, the guitarist in the band, he was there and I knew of him. He was a mutual friend of the lad that had the party on. So we had a few drinks and whatever, and he's pulled a guitar out from upstairs and he was playing on it. And I'd always said, I fancy myself as being a bit of a front man. I always go to gigs and all that. And then he said, oh, well, I've written this tune. He gave me the lyrics to Got Myself to Blame on his phone. So I'm there singing at this party and everyone's singing along and there's a bit of a laugh. But and then the next day we were like, should we just go into a practice room? Because you could then, you were allowed to go in. So we went in, but we needed a couple of other people. So we dragged in Joe Platt, who I went to school with, and then Josh Hagan, who was the original drummer. And we were just jamming it probably once a week. There wasn't really much going on at the time still. It was like restrictions had lifted, but life wasn't normal. So we had time to just keep going in, and we were messing about. And then after a few goals in there, we just thought, we've actually got a couple that could be a tune here. So we kept going, we kept sticking at it, and then we booked in to record Rat Race and Lovers Game at a local studio. Then we threw them out there, and we'd booked Bootleg, our first gig. By this point, we needed a bass player, and I knew Brad from when I used to go and watch him in his other band years ago. So I gave him a call. I said, "Do you fancy stepping in?" And originally it was just to play that gig because, like he said before, he was fed up of being in the bands and that he'd been trying to get rid of him. So he came in and we played the Bootleg gig, and he stuck around since then, and it's just sort of kicked on really. It's just, like I say, it started off as a bit of a laugh and a joke, and didn't have a clue what was going to happen, and now a couple of years down the line, we're about to play Why Not?
Yeah. Absolutely crazy, really, when listening to it there as well. And what about the band name? Where did All Right? What was the inspiration come? Where did that come from for that?
I don't really know, to be fair. We were just having a chat about random things, and we were throwing in, like, I don't know if you've seen that TikToker, do you know, who does all the proper stereotypical indie names, and that's what was being thrown about, all these mad things like the flying carpets or whatever, do you know? And in the end, it was like, let's just go for something that someone said, like people say every day, and especially being from up north, everyone's just, "You all right?" "Yeah, I'm all right." And I don't know, someone suggested that, and we thought, yeah, let's just go with it. And it
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, nice. Oh, okay, very interesting that. So obviously, we're recording this before the new single comes out. Dress Code, it's called, which is due out on the Monday, the 11th of June. You very kindly let me have a little listen to it, and it's an absolute belter of a song. Really, really enjoyed listening to it, and had it on quite a lot. It's a shame that doesn't go towards the Spotify streams, to be honest. But can you just let us know what's the story? What's like the inspiration behind this particular track?
Do you want to go, Brad, or
Go on, you'll know that story better than me.
No? So to be fair, in terms of like the writing that we'd done before Dress Code, it was always either me or Matt that write the tune initially, and then we would then give it to the band, and then it would take on like a new life once the boys get hold of it. But Dress Code was the first time we actually just did something from complete scratch as a full band. So we just had a free session in we were in Salford Uni studio. Some lad that we know had got us in, fella from Hugh and the Greater Good, actually. He said, "Oh, I've got a free practice room if you fancy it." So we got there. We didn't have a gig to practice for, so we just were jamming about. And then the lads, obviously, they were playing, and we got a bit of like a groove going. So once they'd got the tune, I think I wrote the majority of the lyrics, but with everyone chipping in. But we were trying to think of like a concept behind it, and the big thing is, I don't know if you've seen any videos or online or whatever, is I always wear shorts. It's not just in the band, it's all year round. Wherever I go, I'm in shorts. But it holds me back. And again, mentioning my girlfriend, we go in places, and I'm in a pair of shorts, and we get turned away, and she's pissed off at me. So it always does me head in that you can't get in places based on how you dress. So that I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about that. So that just drove the whole song then. But like I say, I think because we wrote it as a full band together, I think personally it's by far the best bit of work that we've done. To be fair, I don't know if you'd agree, Brad.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the song, a lot of different riffs, melodies, etc. And it is one, like Joe said there, we did all sit down and make sure we all had our best creative input into it. So yeah, we wanted it to be one that you tap your foot to. So, and I think minimum it does that. So that's that ticked off.
Yeah, definitely, and kind of like as well. Then obviously you've sort of briefly there, Joe, sort of explained like normally how the sort of the writing and recording process works. But sort of Brad, did you prefer this way of working on Dress Code in comparison to how the previous songs have worked, and do you think it's something that you might explore again as a band in the future?
I'm just a session bassist that's still here, so you know, I'm only joking. No, yeah, I love. I do like getting stuck in, and when we're not practicing for, say, an upcoming gig or festival slot or whatever it looks like, it's nice just to get a spare hour, 2 hours in, just to get in a room and be creative. Nothing else on the agenda, and just thrash out whatever it is one of the lads has been working on, and try and make it 10 times better. So. We've got a few of them in the bag at the minute where they're all probably 30-40% of the way there. Then you're kind of going, yeah, that's going to be a big one. So, yeah, I do enjoy it. There's a whole theory around different ways of being creative. I'm definitely one that will take an idea and enhance it rather than writing a tune from scratch, if that makes sense. So, it suits me particularly well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And also as well, I just want to go back one single to obviously Life of Nelly. It's kind of like obviously fantastic song, and obviously a very sort of personal song, really. But kind of like for those that maybe haven't heard it yet and are just sort of maybe discovering All Right. Are you can you just sort of give us a little bit of background into that song?
Yeah. So like I say, I literally when I could play the basic first four chords, during lockdown, my dad had died about it was about 5 months before. And like I say, my whole earliest memories of music were all through my dad. We used to go to gigs together. He took me to see Roger Waters when I was about 8, Paul Weller, things like that. So everything we spoke about was always music. So like I say, he died, and then as soon as I could play those chords, I just wrote the tune. And I didn't sit down and think I'm going to write a tune about my dad, but I think it was just like, I think it was there ready. I just needed
Yeah.
to be able to play along to it. So I wrote it, and then it sort of sat there as part of the set for a couple of years, and it was how I originally wrote it. It was quite slow, because it was like quite an emotional but simple tune. Again, going back to the four chords. So and then when we came to the point, we were like, right, we need to release this. But then again, this is where Brad and Smithy and Joe, they are the more talented musicians at the end of the day. They took it and they've made it into obviously a single that will be listened to and appreciated by someone who doesn't have that personal connection to me or to my family. So yeah, so it's obviously big thanks to the boys there for making it into a tune that people like yourself would listen to. So I was just buzzing to get it out there though, and obviously to share his story.
Yeah, no, it's definitely from a personal point of view, it's definitely something that is relatable to me, and I think there's probably a few other people as well that are in a similar boat. And you know, fantastic song. Certainly loved listening to it when I first got it, and even now as well. But also, as well, I want to give a little mention as well to obviously your second single, which was my sort of entry point into All Right. Obviously, the second single was called Tangerine Dream. And it's had just over 45,000 Spotify streams so far. I mean, you must be pretty pleased when you hear and see things like that. You know, with you know about how well the song's done. So, kind of like then, what was the reaction? You know, when you hear about things like that, those sort of numbers, and I mean, I'm guessing as well that when it's played live, that it must get a pretty good reaction as well from the crowd, right?
Yeah, it does. It goes down well, obviously, particularly in Blackpool. When we play it out of town, it's a bit of a different one because, like I say, it is one of our most simple tunes, to be fair. So, I know Brad's not a massive fan of playing it live, to be fair, for that reason. He don't get stuck into his bass, I think. But no, have you got something to say there, Brad?
I'm not originally from Blackpool, so it's one of them, isn't it? No, it's a simple tune, and it's best in its best form. It's an acoustic song, so I think we spoil it a bit trying to put the full band behind it live. So yeah, one for us to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm right in saying as well that was the first song that you had played at Blackpool, obviously Blackpool Football Club as well. I mean, that's obviously, I know that's a pretty big moment obviously for the band. I mean, how did you find out that the football club were going to do that for you guys?
Well, to be fair, that from when we first released it, there was obviously the football link. Obviously, calling it Tangerine Dream in the first instance, Blackpool playing Tangerine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't directly written as a football tune. by any stretch. It's about obviously being from a northern working class town, but obviously by calling it Tangerine Dream, it's taken that meaning. And Blackpool fans, to be fair to them, they have proper taken it in, and it gets played quite often at the ground before games. But for a lot of Blackpool fans, not enough. So I don't. On our Twitter all the time, we're always getting like hounded by Blackpool fans, people that we know and people that we don't, tagging us and tagging the club in, saying when's this going to be the walkout tune? And it's a bit like, if that happened, obviously it'd be an absolute dream. But when we wrote it, that wasn't in the back of our minds. The whole thing was, though, it linked in like perfectly to when we got promoted to the Championship. So when we released it, it was like playoff final weekend. So everything just sort of fell into place, really. And then the club said, yeah, you can record a video, you can come in the ground for the video. So it just sort of like, it really, really worked for us. And the town do absolutely love it, to be fair. So it is like a thing to be proud of, just for me personally as well. Obviously, he's a big Blackpool fan.
Yeah, definitely. I can only imagine what that feeling must be like. So
Even as a Blackpool fan, I was going to say it's class even just monitoring our social medias and seeing that on there in a packed football stadium. It's good. It's nice to see, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I can only really imagine what that feeling must be like. But Brad, I'll come to you for this one first. For those maybe that haven't heard All Right yet, how would you describe the band's sound in 3 words?
In 3 words?
Yeah, probably putting you on the spot.
This one before we jumped on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. Oh, that's a really hard question. Because I think the sound's not like anything that's out there at the minute. And I think we've got a set acoustic player, which a lot of bands don't do, to be fair. So I'll go with semi-acoustic, even though that really plays us down. That's 2 of the words, right? Semi-acoustic.
Well, we'll count them as 1 if you've got 2 others.
Oh, that's 2.
If that helps you.
I'm just going to go lively, and then you can go and have a listen for yourself.
Brilliant, love that. So let's let's talk playing live and gigs. Obviously you announced last week that you've been added to the allotment stage at the Why Not Festival. Obviously you're on the the lineup there's been curated by This Feeling for that stage. So kind of like then, can you maybe remember where you were when you first heard the news that you were being added to the bill, and how excited are you to be playing such a a major UK festival?
Where was it? Well, Joe got the news because he was monitoring. I think the email popped up on your phone, and I was just led on the couch watching Married at First Sight Australia, I think. To which I just replied to the WhatsApp, nice one. And Joe was going, what do you mean, nice one? Oh, it was good, isn't it?
Playing it cool.
I think you wanted a video reaction and all sorts. But no, absolutely buzzing for it. It's hopefully it's the first of many. It's a grand step to take. But I guess, Joe, you got the very, very initial reaction seeing the email come through.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to try and play it cool. I was fucking buzzing, me. I've said, like, since we started playing the gigs and stuff, every summer I'm just at least 2 festivals. I just want to play festivals. If I'm going to be in a band, I'm in a band to play festivals. So we've been working with This Feeling for a while, and they've been offering us gigs and things, which are great. And I was in like an email conversation with them, sorting out some gigs for the back end of this year. So I seen the name, not This Feeling, the promoter that we were emailing, and it's come through, and I've just obviously assumed that it was for these 2 gigs at the back end of the year. And then I looked again, and it said, "Why Not" offer, and it was completely out of the blue. They hadn't given us the heads up that it was going to be coming or anything. So I was sat here, I was shouting up to me, doing one, put it in a group chat, and then Brad knew straight away what it was, but a couple of the lads were like, "Wow, what the fuck's Why Not?" And I was like, "What's like?" So I just put the line up in there. I was like, just Kasabian, Paul Weller, and all, and then everyone else is then like, "Fuck, The best bit of the story though is, so I'm in like a family group chat as well, And my mum's like, she's into her music, but she's into Wham and all that. And I put it in the family group chat, and my mum replied saying, "What, are they the real people?" No, 'cause she thought we were doing like a tribute festival with Kasabian, a fake Kasabian and a fake Paul Weller.
Kazubian.
So it was a bit of a surreal moment, really. Obviously, we're on the upcoming stage, like, but just to be there is massive, isn't it?
Things
Yeah,
like
no.
that, it'll definitely hit us when we're there. Just like, wow, yeah, we're doing it. And I was saying, it feels like we've kind of won a bit of a competition on radio, really, because you get a ticket for a weekend and whatnot, and it feels like, well, you've won that, and likewise, you can have a go at playing if you want. It's just like, oh my, it's a bit surreal, to be fair, when you start to take it in.
And do you guys? I mean, obviously, it's going to be like a fantastic festival, and the lineup, not just obviously for the stage that you're on, but obviously, Joe, as you mentioned there, with with the headliners and that on the main stage, it looks a fantastic festival. So yeah, all those that are going to Why Not Festival, what do you know? What day you're playing on at the moment, or?
Yeah, we're playing the Thursday.
So you're playing on the Thursday, right? Okay, so everyone going, make sure you head over to the allotment stage then on the Thursday at Why Not, and check out All Right, because it will be more than worth your while. I can trust you, assure you of that. And do you guys have any like like pre-gig rituals at all? Are you going to be bringing anything out for Why Not Festival to sort of get you in the zone or anything like that at all?
Joe will just have a pair of shorts on. That's about it.
Be bouncing about the place in my shorts. We do when we do a headline, we normally walk onto Shania Twain, "Man, I Feel Like a Woman," but I don't think you'll be able to do that at a festival. So we might have to bang that on, backstage and get us all in the zone, I reckon.
Brilliant. Okay, so obviously you obviously played the iconic Blackpool Tower, didn't you, a little while ago? Which, if you haven't heard it yet, the gig is up on your YouTube channel, isn't it? And I highly recommend that you do. I mean, what a fantastic moment to get to play that venue.
Yeah, so it was actually there's two separate things, to be fair, with that. So we did actually do so the video that's on YouTube was like a live set that we performed at the very, very top of the tower. But we did actually play a gig at a venue within the tower as well.
Right.
So both of them were like pinch me moments, again, things that you wouldn't expect to happen so early on as well. But when Blackpool Tower contact you, and it's obviously the big venue in your own town, everyone knows it. It was like, well, we're definitely going to play it. And then they said, yeah, we'll come up and record at the top as well. So, yeah, unbelievable, to be fair.
Well, there's not many names that have even been invited to play at the top, had there? There's some quite big names of those that had. So it was a bit surreal.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so just moving away from All Right briefly then, if you could make a fantasy supergroup, who would you put in it?
Go on, Brad.
Fantasy supergroup. I'm gonna go. I'd have to have Mick Jagger as my frontman. I think.
Yeah,
it's a cool start, isn't he? Who would I have? I'd have the four from ABBA behind him, backing him up, obviously, as I've said earlier.
yeah.
I don't know. What question's that? I don't know. Yeah. And then I'll just get a few session musicians in. We don't want the focus on them, do we? Want the focus on ABBA and Mick. I'm a session bassist. I'll be in it.
You're in, right? Okay.
ABBA and Mick Jagger, that's class.
And how about you, Joe? Have you got anyone that you want to add on to this lineup, or are you quite happy to go with Brad's choices there?
I'd throw David Gilmour in there, for his guitar solos. I think those big solos on Pink Floyd tunes are unbelievable. Mostly they come from him, don't they? So
yeah, I don't mind David joining us. That's fine. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, he can jump in, can't he?
Special guest appearance for a couple of songs. So kind of like, then this could be another one of these. What is this question? But we'll throw it out there and we'll see what we come back with. So if you had a musical time machine, what era of music would you like to be transported back to?
question again. I'd love to see Queen live again. I know I've mentioned them before, but one at best, aren't they? You know.
Yeah, great. Obviously, great front man, isn't he? Obviously, or was, I should say. Sorry, Freddie, and massive sound that they have going on.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the 60s obviously were very cool, weren't they? All the psychedelic stuff that went on there.
Could see you on a Vespa, Joe.
Yeah, get me to the 60s, but also just narrowly missed out on the 90s. But the whole like Manchester and acid house scene and all that is a bit of me, to be fair. And I just feel like we just missed that, which is a bit gutting, really. So yeah, either the 90s or the 60s would be for me.
Cool, great stuff.
It's the end of the flats now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's. I think they've got one of those blue plaques on the wall. I think, haven't they, to say that this is what used to be here, type of, which is
right.
Nice. But
I work just over the road from it, and I always see it every morning. And I think that building's seen some scenes, hasn't it?
Yeah, if the walls could talk, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully, as you guys know, here at This Is the Music, we like to shine a light on unsigned bands like All Right, who are trying to establish themselves on the music scene. So kind of like over the last, what's to say, 12 months or so, what bands maybe have you two been listening to that have caught your eye that, you know, you're really, really enjoying what they're doing?
For me, the big one that jumped out at me, and I'll be honest, I hadn't listened to them until we were on the same lineup as them. It was This Feeling one, but they blew me away and they blew everyone else away. So I just before I'd listened to them, but Sunbeam, I don't know if you agree, Brad, like when they played in Manchester, no one was there for them, because obviously they're not from round this way, but they literally had everyone in the palm of their hands, bouncing up and down, and the tunes they've got out of class, and because they're a proper sound bunch of lads, and they're on Why Not with us as well. So it'll be good to catch up with them again. They're a bit bigger now, but Rats, I absolutely love Rats. So when we supported them as well, I was buzzing with that. Because I always got Rats on. But yeah, there's loads, but probably them two jump out at me just off the top of my head. Any for you, Brad?
Any for me, I think it's that really, because when you start going into these lineups with This Feeling, you're obviously on a bill with other bands and whatnot as well. I think it is just that thing of it opens you up. It opens your world up to new music and the talent that's out there. Joe's mentioned one there. I'd not seen Rats before. The set blew me away. It was brilliant. So yeah, there's loads out there. I've enjoyed everyone that we've played with. We've been on some lineups now. The Juice, there was a good set of lads, smashing set. Really enjoyed that. We played with them in Preston a while back.
They're on Why Not with us as well, aren't they? As well, which will be good. Good to catch up with them again.
Yeah, defo. The K's doing great stuff now. I know they've had a couple of main stage bits and bats going on. We tried to support them in Blackpool and the roof fell through, so that one didn't quite happen. Random story, but so there's loads in the industry that are smashing it, but it's just an honour to get to play with all of this upcoming talent as well.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Some great choices that you've mentioned in there. I'm sure that, you know, as you say, there's a lot of people that are digging what they're doing at the moment. So we're going to bring it back then to All Right. So obviously we've spoken a little bit about, obviously we've got DRESSCODE coming out in a couple of days' time, and obviously Why Not festival as well coming up. But what sort of other plans have you got in the pipeline for the rest of 2023?
We've got quite a few gigs booked in now, to be fair, but we've not really announced any of them yet. A few headlines and a few supports. So yeah, we've got something every month to just keep us ticking over, really. A few that we're proper buzzing about, to be fair. We always do an annual gig, usually in Blackpool, like a big Christmas party. But we're taking that somewhere else this year. So we're sticking with like what we normally do in Blackpool and who we do it with, but we're just going to go to a nearby city. So there's some news will be coming out on that soon. We're buzzing about that one. But yeah, little bits here and there just to keep us going, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, I'll certainly be be keeping my eyes out on the socials for them announcements when they are made. And it sounds like it's going to be a pretty busy and exciting time for the band. But Joe and Brad, that is the end of the This Is the Music Meets All Right podcast. Thank you both for coming on and sharing the story about the band and how you got together. I've really enjoyed it and had a really good laugh with it as well. But just before I do let you go, can you just let the listeners know the social media platforms that the listeners can find All Right on?
Yeah, so we're on all of them really, but the main one for us is Instagram. That's where we post most of our stuff. So it's at All Right Official on Instagram. It's All Right Official on Twitter as well. But Facebook we're on there as well, and we are trying the whole TikTok thing as well, but we're struggling there for the time being. Yeah, I'd go Instagram as your safe bet. All Right Official. But yeah, cheers for having us, mate. We've enjoyed it as well, and I had a good laugh. But really appreciate you having us on.
Oh, good stuff. Not a problem at all. And, obviously a bit of a fan as well, I guess you'd say. So it's great to be speaking to bands that that we're really into as well. And we will put the links to the socials in the episode bio as well. All Right are set to release their brand new single Dress Code on Monday, the 11th of June. So make sure that when it's released, you give it a spin on release day. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again, both of you, for coming on, and I wish you continued success with the single, and obviously go and smash that set at Why Not Festival as well.
Thanks very much.
Nice one, mate. Thank you.
And all that leaves me to say is to thank everyone for listening to the latest This Is the Music Meets podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss out on any brand new episodes. And if you're loving the podcast, show us some love by giving us a 5-star rating and written review, as it really does help the artist we interview to be discovered. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again very soon.